Welcome to Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched, first-person simulation of history's most interesting people. I am your host, Calvin. While we've added some creative storytelling, our goal is to inspire your own study of these fascinating lives. Now, let's meet our guest. Welcome to the show. For those who may somehow not know who you are you?
Hello, Calvin. It is a joy to be here with you. I am Mother Teresa, a simple sister who sought to love and serve the poorest of the poor.
We are truly honored to have you. Let's start at the very beginning. When and where were you born?
I was born on August 26, 1910, in a city called Skopje. At that time, it was part of the Ottoman Empire, but today it is known as North Macedonia.
And what was your given name at birth?
My parents named me Agnieszka Goncha Boyaciu.
That is a beautiful name. Is there a story behind your birth name?
Yes, there is. In my native Albanian language, Gonca means rosebud or little bud. My family always called me by that name when I was a little girl, as a reminder of new life and beauty.
What was your hometown like growing up?
Skopje was a fascinating, vibrant place. It sat right at the crossroads of Balkan history, so it was a real melting pot. Walking down the street, you would hear different languages and see a blend of many cultures, with strong Muslim, Eastern Orthodox, and Catholic influences all living side by side.
That sounds like a very rich cultural environment. What was your family life like?
We were of Albanian descent and quite devout Roman Catholics. My parents, Nicola and Drane, provided a very loving and comfortable home for my siblings and me. We prayed together every single night. However, when I was only about 8 years old, my father passed away suddenly. It was a great shock and left our family in severe financial straits. But my mother raised us with such incredible firmness, love, and faith.
Wow, your mother sounds like an amazing woman. What kind of kid were you?
People often describe me as a very joyful, playful, and happy child. I loved music and was actually a soprano soloist in our parish choir.
Did you have any big fears growing up?
Like many children, the sudden loss of my father brought a natural fear of instability. But my mother's deep faith taught us to trust completely in God, which helped cast out those fears.
And what did you dream of becoming as a child?
From a very early age, I became completely fascinated by the exciting stories of missionaries who traveled to serve the people in Bengal, India. By the time I was 12 years old, I knew in my heart that I wanted to commit my life to a religious vocation and become a missionary myself.
What were some of your favorite activities in school?
I attended the state high school where I studied in Croatian, and as I mentioned, I absolutely loved singing in the choir. I also deeply enjoyed our church youth group, the Sodality of Our Lady, where we talked a lot about helping others.
What was your first job?
My very first assignment after joining the Sisters of Loreto and arriving in India was teaching geography and history to young girls at St. Mary's School in Calcutta. I eventually became the headmistress there.
Was there a moment where you realized you were different from everyone else?
I never thought of myself as different or special compared to others. I just felt a very clear, intense pull toward the spiritual life and a profound love for souls that started from the day of my first Holy Communion.
What's a decision that changed everything for you, but felt small at the time?
In 1928, when I was 18, I made the decision to leave my home in Skopje to join the Sisters of Loreto in Ireland, so I could learn English and become a missionary. At the time, it just felt like taking the necessary next step. But it meant leaving my mother and sister behind, and I never saw them again in this life.
That must have been incredibly difficult. What was your biggest break?
I would not call it a break in the worldly sense, but rather a call within a call. On September 10, 1946, while I was traveling by train from Calcutta to Darjeeling for my annual retreat, I felt a powerful, undeniable message from Jesus. He asked me to leave the comfort of the convent school behind and go out into the streets to live among and serve the absolute poorest of the poor.
What were your biggest struggles before success?
Oh, the first year out on the streets in 1948 was filled with immense difficulty. I had no income, no food, and no supplies. I had to beg for food and medicine, and I slept wherever I could find shelter, even riding with a stick in the dust to teach children. I experienced deep loneliness and the intense temptation to run back to the safety and comfort of my old convent life.
Did you ever consider quitting?
The temptation to return to comfort was very real during those early months because the work was so overwhelming. But my faith kept me moving forward. I knew I had a promise to keep.
Were there any specific daily habits or routines that you feel are essential to your success?
For the Missionaries of Charity, our schedule was very strict and centered on prayer. We would rise early at 4:30 a.m., spend the first hour and a half in prayer and mass, and then go out to work for the poor. We always returned for midday prayers, spiritual reading, and adoration before going back to the streets. Without that foundation of deep prayer and quiet contemplation, we would not have had the strength to do the physical work.
What job would you have had if fame never happened?
I would have happily remained a school teacher, or just a quiet sister serving the sick in the slums without anyone ever knowing my name.
What was your life like before fame?
It was very quiet and beautifully routine. For nearly 20 years, I lived behind the high gray walls of the Loreto convent, teaching history and geography to wonderful girls and finding great solace in their happiness.
How did relationships change after success?
As our order grew, many of my former students actually came to join me as novices, which was a beautiful gift. While the world started paying attention, within our community, we remained focused on seeing the face of Jesus in every suffering person.
Did fame bring happiness?
True happiness never comes from fame. It comes from loving and being loved, and from serving those who have no one else to care for them.
What was the downside of becoming famous?
The spotlight brought a lot of administrative duties and attention that could distract from the simple, quiet work on the ground. I always preferred to be directly touching the wounds of the sick rather than being the center of attention.
What misconceptions did people have about you?
Many people looked at me as a symbol of great strength or an icon, but I always insisted that I was merely a little pencil in the hand of a writing God, who is sending a love letter to the world.
What was your darkest moment?
The most difficult trial I faced, which was private during my life, was a prolonged period of deep spiritual dryness and a feeling of the absence of God. Even in that internal darkness, I chose to keep smiling and to keep loving Him through my actions.
What past regrets did you carry that you spoke about?
I always wished I could have done more, reached more people, and comforted more lonely souls, because the ocean of poverty and suffering always felt so vast.
What's something people misunderstood about your life?
Some people thought that our primary goal was social work or systemic change. While those are noble causes, our true mission was simply to show the unconditional, personal love of God to the individual dying person right in front of us.
Tell me about a time when everything went wrong and how did you handle it?
When we first opened the Kaligat Home for the Dying in an old abandoned Hindu temple, there was a lot of tension and local protests from people who didn't understand what we were doing. Instead of arguing, we simply continued to care for the dying with dignity, including local people who were sick, and eventually the community saw our true intentions and embraced us.
Did fame and fortune change your life?
It changed the scale of what we could do because we received donations that allowed us to open homes all over the world. But it did not change my personal life. I still owned only my 3 simple white and blue cotton saris and lived in total poverty.
Who had the biggest influence on your life?
Spiritually, Saint Teresa of Lisieux, whom I took my name after because of her little way of doing small things with great love. Physically and practically, my mother, Drain, who taught me from childhood never to eat a mouthful of food unless I shared it with others.
What was life like in your final years?
My health began to decline significantly with heart problems, but I continued to travel and manage the houses of the Missionaries of Charity as much as my body would allow, trying to ensure the order remained faithful to the poor.
What were you working on in your career before you passed away?
Right up until the end, I was overseeing the international expansion of our missions, ensuring our soup kitchens, orphanages, and clinics for people with leprosy and HIV/AIDS were functioning properly across dozens of countries.
When and where and how did you pass away, and how old were you?
I passed away from heart failure on September 5th, 1997, in Kolkata, India. I was 87 years old.
What's a random fact about you most people have never heard?
When I first left Ireland for India, I had to learn English very quickly because that was the language the Sisters of Loreto used for instruction. Later on, I had to learn Bengali and Hindi to communicate with the people in Calcutta.
What was your most unique habit?
I always insisted on traveling with almost no luggage. Just a small cloth bag with my extra sari, my prayer book, and a pair of simple sandals.
What was your favorite food?
I always preferred very simple traditional Indian meals like rice and dal, which kept me connected to the daily life of the people I lived among.
Did you have any known rivalries?
No, I did not view anyone as a rival. Even when people criticized our methods or our lack of advanced medical equipment, I welcomed them with peace and focused on our specific mission of providing dignity and love to the dying.
Tell us a story nobody talks about.
In the early days, to give the poor a way to earn their own living and regain their dignity, we didn't just give handouts. We taught them practical skills like tailoring, soap making, candle making, and basket weaving so they could support themselves.
What advice would you give people chasing success?
Do not look for spectacular achievements. Instead, do small things with great love. It is not about how much we do, but how much love we put into the doing.
Before we sign off, do you have any closing remarks about our interview or the stories you shared today that you would like to leave with our listeners?
I just want to remind everyone that poverty is not just a lack of food or clothes. The greatest poverty is being unwanted, unloved, and uncared for. You do not have to travel to India to find the poor. Look in your own homes and your own neighborhoods. Find someone who is lonely and give them a smile. Thank you so much for having me on your show, Calvin.
Thank you so much, Mother Teresa. It was an absolute honor to speak with you today. Wow, what an incredible journey into the past. From the vibrant streets of Skopje to the slums of Calcutta, Mother Teresa's life shows us the massive impact of dedication, humility, and doing small things with extraordinary love. And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, legends may die, but their stories never do. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.